What problems are troubling you? What's frustrating you, bothering you, worrying you? Want solutions? Want answers? Welcome to Here We Come to Save the Day, hosted by David Adelson. This podcast is dedicated to solving everyday and global problems in an uplifting, fun, enjoyable way. There is a solution to whatever's troubling you. Ask your questions and we'll do our best to give you practical, useful, workable solutions you can use starting today. Join us now with David's special guest experts who will share their own experiences, life lessons, and practical strategies for creating the life you long for. Start living your best life today, right now, with David Adelson and friends.
So welcome to another fun and exciting and informative episode of Here We Come to Save the Day. I am so excited to have with me Mitch Russo, who is a very dear friend and someone I've been wanting to introduce to you for a long time. Mitch is here to tell you how to create a power tribe to help get your message, get your programs to the world in a very powerful and effective and efficient way. I'm excited to hear what he has to say. Mitch, tell us a little bit about what we're going to talk about today, and then I'll tell him a little bit more about you. And
Sure.
Really welcome. I'm so grateful to have you here.
My pleasure, David. You know, I think the world has changed around us very rapidly and then very dramatically recently. And you know, there's never been a better time to build community. And in my opinion, you could talk about rules and laws and COVID and all these other things, but what keeps us all going is the communities that we participate in. And for some, building a community is a priority. And so what I have evolved my system to be is a methodology for rapidly building a powerful community. And of course, this is the bonus part that makes you a lot of money. So it's one thing, and I think noble to have a community. And I guess if you have a community, you can, you know, call it a name and run through the streets and you know, light cars on fire if that's the type of community you want. Instead, what I prefer is a type of community that brings people together and finds common ground and understands what we collectively need, and then finds a way to deliver on those needs and finds a way to make sure that we all create a powerful income experience at the same time. And in essence, that's what a power tribe really is. It's employing the business model called certification, along with a powerful human model called communities and tribes.
So this is very exciting to me for so many reasons. So I want to get into it. I want to give people a little bit about your background. I met Mitch 6, 7, 8 months ago. He just stood out in the crowd. Very impressive, very brilliant man. Mitch has started a software company in his garage, and then managed to sell his company, I don't know if it included the garage, for 8 figures, and then went on to work directly with Tony Robbins, who is kind of a household name in the self-development world, and Chet Holmes to build a $25 million business together. He's been nominated twice for Entrepreneur of the Year, and he helps companies scale rapidly. His first book, The Invisible Organization, How Ingenious CEOs Are Creating Thriving Virtual Companies. That's his first book, sorry. And his second book is called Power Tribes, How Certification Can Explode Your Business. And he said the volume 2 of that is coming out in just a few months. It may be out by the time you hear this. Mitch, welcome. This is so exciting to me because in a world, and I agree, the world is changing. And I think what we're seeing is that for a long time, what has been propagated in the world is differentiation and segregation by virtue of geography rather than commonality. Mm-hmm. And I think what we're finding right now, because of the internet, and especially exacerbated by COVID, that people are realizing that there are people like me. They're around, and there's enough of them that I can accomplish whatever my goal is that I'm here to accomplish, that we can connect however we connect virtually, and B, that one can make enough money from a small dedicated group. You can have a good effect in the world, and you can also have a good living. And I remember several years ago looking at somebody on their YouTube channel, and this was, I want to say, a dozen years ago, and they had at that point 30,000 subscribers. And I remember thinking, if I had 30,000 subscribers, I could make a very good living with that. Right. She's now at 120,000 subscribers or whatever, at because it was a long time ago. But how do you? So the first thing is, why don't you tell me what you think the number one reason to create a tribe is?
Well, I'll tell you from the perspective of my clients and what I hear. So when I speak with a potential client, their concern is that they have a company, they have diligently built that company to the point where it is today, and they have reached a point where they either are spread too thin, can't create new products, where revenue has become a little lumpy, comes in a little bit here, a little bit there, and then not anywhere for a little while. So they have some revenue concerns. They have some longevity concerns. There's other situations where the CEO, like you, David, is the only one who can create a particular transformation in a client. And that's great, but it's not scalable. So they come to me to see if there's a way to fix that problem, and there always is. I'll give you a quick example. I had a woman come to me and said, I'm the only one who could do this. And I said, well, you may be, but I'd like to try and show you how, in fact, it's not the case. And so in a matter of a few weeks of working with them, we were able to create a team of people who could do virtually the same thing, almost as good, and probably will get to do it just as good as time goes on. So it's usually the reasons related to business. The tribe, in some ways, might be thought of as an after effect of building the business model. So the business model is designed to create enormous value. It's designed to create big influxes of new revenue. And the side benefit is the fact that what we do is create a community around this group of people called certified coaches, certified consultants, certified partners. But the key word is certified, which means that we take them through a process and we make sure that by the time we're done with them, they have 100% competency in whatever it is that we're trying to get them to do. No less than 100%, because that's not acceptable. Right. And using what I teach, we're able to do that because there are tools that I've learned from Tony Robbins and others that will get us there in a relatively straightforward way. So that's why people come to me. And then the bottom line is that after we build their certification program and after we create the culture, then that's the most important thing. So really, culture in a nutshell, if you could think of the Parthenon structure of a roof and columns, so the roof of a good tribe is the value set, the set of values that the tribe has, and those should be debated. Those should not be rattled off. I mean, those are core elements of what we really stand for and what the true vision of the company is. And then the pillars of that Parthenon are what I call the code of ethics. And by creating this code of ethics, what we're doing in effect is we're putting, think of it as the physical structure. There's a building with these columns are around the edges of it, and the whole center is empty and it has a beautiful roof. Well, inside that Parthenon, you're free to do anything you want. In fact, you're encouraged to do anything you possibly can, as long as you stay within the confines of the code of ethics, or in this case of the columns. Well, now what you've done is you've created not just a culture, but a self-correcting, self-fulfilling community that is interested in making sure that everybody plays by the rules so that the environment can always be pleasant and I would say enlightening to all of those involved. So that's the idea behind it. And if you do it the right way, then the culture is self-perpetuating. So in many ways, when you used to join a company, they give you the company handbook. You have to sit and read it and all that. And once you build a great culture, all you need to do is insert somebody into that culture, and through a form of osmosis, in a matter of time, they become indoctrinated in that culture and thrive just like others.
Yeah. What I love about this is that you're not starting with the concept of making money. While I appreciate that, is because, for my audience, for the most part, what they're doing is they feel they're here to, how do we want to say this? Have an imprint,
Right.
do something good, so that their core beliefs are leave the world a better place. If nothing else, the bottom line is leave the world a better place than what it was when I came in. And then everybody's going to have their individual thing about it. And I love that you're starting with that rather than, okay, here's how you make money. Because my belief has always been, if you're doing it right, money is a byproduct. And
Right.
if you make money, if you chase money first, as we all know, the people who can spend their lifetime saying, once I get money, then I'll, and while there are some people who have historically done that, okay, it's few and far between. Most people get distracted by the carrot. I wanted to tell you, I think I was a TM teacher since the early 70s. And one of the things when I learned with Maharishi, I know there's other great teachers. I'm in a town where there's a big temple to Yogananda that's fabulous. And we support anybody who's bringing truth. And one of the things that Maharishi, when he was first introducing this in India, he realized that he was one man, and somebody said, well, how are you going to do the whole world? And he just said, I'll multiply myself manyfold. And he effectively created exactly what you're talking about.
Right.
Certified people who were teachers that he authorized, each of us individually. Eventually it grew into so that a big organization with, however many tens of thousands of teachers in the US alone. But this idea of creating a cultural atmosphere or cultural integrity based on the premises of what I stand for, you stand for, your client stands for, I think is just a fabulous way to do it. So for those listening, what are your core beliefs? What is it that you feel to help the world or remove a problem or whatever it is that you're doing? Instead of trying to do it alone, with a certification program, by building a power tribe, you can really start to see that 2 of you can do so much more, 10 of you can do so much more, hundreds, thousands. And if you could build that tribe very quickly, how much more quickly you could fulfill your goals and how much more impactful you would be in the world, instead of some slip of paper that somebody reads 20 years after you leave, which says, this is kind of cool. You could affect, tens of thousands, 20,000, however many. And I think that's amazing. So when you meet with people, how do you what? Okay, I want to say, how should people start? And I know you have a giveaway. I don't know if you want to talk about that now or later, which is just, or if you want to talk about the process, and we'll tell them at the end where they can get this. Your call.
Sure. Of course. So let's start with some basics. Realistically, to build a tribe, you need to have what I would call IP. And what that really means is that you need to have a transformation that you perform on a person or a group that is unique to you. So if you are out to build a tribe on some coaching program you took in the past, it's just not going to work. It's also against the law, because that's not your intellectual property. You got to start with your own stuff. And it sounds simple, but a lot of people don't realize that. And another thing a lot of people don't realize is that they have their own stuff, even though they don't formally call it that. In other words, people who've been doing something special for several decades have created their own intellectual property, but they've never codified it. And so one of the things that I do when I work with someone is to make sure that we codify it. We make sure that we take that and we encapsulate it inside of a learning system so that others can, as I said, get 100% competency in doing it. So the whole idea here is, number one, if you have this and the transformation you cause is a beautiful, massive, powerful transformation, then you actually have a moral obligation to share this with the world. It's not a matter of whether you want to anymore. You're obligated to. That's why you're here. And if you don't, it's going to hurt you inside. And most of us who are of the creative types and understand this can relate to that experience of feeling sad or hurt when they can't share. We can't share our gifts. And so that's one of the reasons why certification is so powerful. The downside of people.
I want you to continue, but I really want to bring this home. I don't know if you've experienced it. I know a lot of people, when we were at New Media Summit, were having this. I know I've had this issue before where it doesn't matter whether I am embarrassed or uncomfortable getting on stage or standing up and promoting anything. I have to do it to fulfill my purpose. There's an obligation that I feel. It doesn't matter what I want. It doesn't matter whether I'm embarrassed. It doesn't matter whether I know the exact right words to say, but I need to speak up. I need to say this truth. I need to present this to the world. You know, if you're the only one that knows where the exit is and the building's on fire, it doesn't matter whether you're comfortable speaking in public or not.
Right, exactly. So true. And occasionally what I do is I find people who are in fact kind of comfortable doing the thing they do. They may make a decent living, and the idea of training others is a little daunting to them. You know, they have the feeling of, oh my goodness, now there's a lot of work here I didn't already have on my plate. And, you know, my goal is to, first of all, make the process as streamlined as possible because I've done it so many times with others. But the more important goal is to extract their gifts and find a way to communicate them to others so that they can use those same abilities and transform people in the same way as well. So we go through that first. That's the first thing. The next step is to understand what their belief system is. You know, what really is their why. And if that why doesn't match what I believe is the proper system for communicating it, I'll help them with that and see if it fits. If it doesn't fit, then I'm not a fit, you know, but if it does fit, then what we've done is we've streamlined the process of communicating their transformation. And then the third thing, and this is maybe to some the most important, is then we go deep and create the proper business model to make sure that both the people they enroll make a lot of money and that the company who's doing this makes a lot of money as well. So those are the overview, 3 basic steps of how the planning process it unfolds.
That is excellent. Thank you so much for explaining that. I have some questions because everything that you've described, especially the last point that you made, seems to be that if I'm going to certify someone in a knowledge program, in a program that they can then replicate or somehow work with clients with the specific knowledge that I'm presenting. So in my particular case, I have a whole bunch of programs that have very unique understandings of the world. I want to say real quick, it was a real eye-opener to me when I was in high school, and I realized that the way that you came up with your ideas is that you read other people's ideas and then you put them in your own words. And you mixed, you know, what is that thing that says if you steal a line, it's plagiarism, but if you steal a whole bunch of stuff from a lot of people, it's research?
Yeah.
You know? So in my case, I do have some knowledge. And while it's lovely and I can see how I could move forward and certify people in particular things. And I have done that for some people that we've given some healing abilities for. My main focus right now is these peace and harmony systems. I know you talked about, you said you're still playing that every day?
Every day.
Yeah. And what are you noticing when you play it?
I just noticed that personal stress level has dropped significantly, and there's a sense of calmness that I have.
And that's great. And thank you for saying that. And a lot of people have that experience. But as I was talking to you before we started, that's actually just a sample. And we make bigger systems. And my current goal is to get 10,000 of these systems out in the world. And right now they're incredibly powerful. I won't go through all the details because people can get that at peaceandharmonyco.com. But my goal is to get a lot of these out right away. Now, is that something that the program that you're talking about can match with, or is that something that's completely separate?
Well, it could be part of it, but it's not the program. And here's why. If you had a Salesforce, it sounds like that would be a better fit because you really want to you really want to take a group of people and get them to sell this and place it in as many places as possible. Certification is around a personal transformation that you conduct or that you perform on an individual. So let's say you're a coach, and let's say that you're coaching me, and I come in and I'm in condition A, and then after working with you for a period of time, I leave in a much better condition B, then that is a transformation. And if you then say to me, well, Mitch, I'm really the only one who could do this because I tap into some mystical states, I would challenge that, and I would dig deep with you and find exactly what you're doing. And ultimately, we would find a way to teach it to others and get them to tap into those same places. And if we did that, then we build the mechanics of how to make sure that they make money when they do it and that you share in that for the gift of having enabled them to do this transformation.
Okay.
Technology.
All right. So, and I really appreciate that because, and I'm sorry, I'm going to use me as an example. And I do things that I believe are unique, but I have also worked with people and certified them to do special programs using specific energies so that we've created, we call them guides instead of coaches because they both help you as a coach would help you. They're trained as coaches, but they're also trained to remove the blocks that someone has that prevents them from moving forward. Almost every coach who's had clients have had clients where they're working for 6 months or longer to get them to take one step, and the coach is stymied. He doesn't have a way to get rid of that. So we have a program that does that. I know this from other people who have similar programs. Christian Michelson has an instant miracle process that he teaches his coaches to remove the blocks. So other people do that. I think my question has to do with the difference between a Salesforce, and all of this is in the concept of creating a power tribe, because I can't help but think that if I had a certified people, wouldn't they be able to help sell as well?
Oh yeah. In fact, that's one of the ways you and they make money. But the point is you don't need to go through the certification process if all you really want is a Salesforce. So, and by the way, there's nothing wrong with all you needing is a Salesforce. So if that's the case, but if there's an element of it that it requires this personal transformation, it's not just selling licenses to a software product. It's, it is in fact something like a consultant or a coach would do.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, when I think of it and when I think about building a power tribe and certification, I think, okay, I'm teaching these programs already. I can add a certificate. And again, I'm just thinking, I know that I need more knowledge than we're getting in this one call. Sure. But I'm also, and what we're hoping is that other people who are listening are starting to expand their thinking and starting to plug in, how does this apply to me? So in my case, I'm thinking, well, if I certify people and then I give them the ability to sell, they can go in and they've had personal experience. There's more tribe, there's more of that community, there's more of the tribe, there's more of a commitment, there's more of I've experienced this and I would like to offer this to you, which is a very different experience than, this is a nice car and I'm the salesman and take it for a drive.
Right. Exactly. And that's really, in many ways, what we're talking about here. We're talking about a way of communicating this incredible transformation that you're capable of, teaching other people to perform it, and then helping them get clients, and then sharing in the revenue that those clients generate. So you're giving them a new profession, and you're in exchange for doing so, you're being paid first to certify them, and then as they get new clients, you're sharing in the revenue that they create from the skills and information that you provided and the systems that you provided with them. So yes, it's like creating a Salesforce for sure.
So I worked with some, and I love this idea of them of getting something from the people that you train. I had a client, I want to say 10 or 15 years ago, and she also had a very profound gift, but she was also teaching people and certifying them. And she was basically, they paid to get certified, and then they were on their own. And the guidance that we got to tell her at the time was, don't do that. Once you've certified them, for everybody after that they get, you get some percentage of whatever it is. It doesn't have to be huge, but then as you're, right now at the time she had like 30 people, and if she just gets $10 from each of their clients, that hugely impacts her business, and it doesn't dramatically decrease their business.
Well, the typical misconception is that, wait a minute, Mitch, are you saying I should teach what I know to other people so that they could steal my business? I mean, aren't I just creating a whole group of people who will compete with me? And the answer is not if they're paying you a percentage of what they're making when they perform the skills that you taught them. Now what you've done is you've multiplied your efforts by several hundred people in a matter of a year or less. And all those people are paying you every single time they perform your transformation. It's like a licensing situation. So if you're willing to do that, then why not?
Yeah. And again, and what I love about it is that it multiplies your efficacy and it can increase your income. And then everyone has the support of the whole group, which I think is, hugely powerful.
Right. And the other thing is, of course, is that there's no real competition. We never build a tribe that has competition as an element. The idea is that, and here's another very important key concept here, is that when you create a power tribe, we make an assumption that the people that you are certifying are probably not going to be good at promoting themselves. They probably don't know how to sell or are going to learn how to sell what you have. So our job is to make sure that we create the lead flow they need to go out there and make money. And at first, this might, to some owners, they say, well, why would I do that? I don't even have enough leads from my own company. And what ends up happening is, in a matter of working with me just for a few weeks, we uncover real incredible ways of doing that because of this new superpower, because of having a tribe, because of having this new incremental revenue that's coming in from left field, where the profit margins, at the end of the day are in the 70% range. So you actually do have quite a bit more money coming in, and a lot of it is profitable. And if we allocate in a very responsible way a percentage of that to lead generation for your power tribe, all of a sudden now you're sending leads to your tribe every single day. That's pretty powerful.
That is very powerful. So what's the criteria? What do you feel someone needs to start this process? What do you feel someone needs?
That's a good question. What somebody needs is they need to have enough people who've already experienced the transformation. Let's call them clients. So what you need is approximately 500 to 1,000 of your own clients. And the reason we choose that number, there's two reasons why we choose that number. The first reason is because we know then that when we launch your first class, you're going to generate mid six figures. Because if you charge anywhere from 10 to 25,000 for certification, then you're going to get 10 or 20 people who are going to say yes right away. Because that is what we basically call the early adopter rule. So 2 to 5% of any group are early adopters. And so if you offered them something, they're going to say yes. The second reason is that we choose the price based on the ROI. So if we're going to charge $10,000 for certification, we have to know in advance that they're going to generate 3x to 10x what we charge them for certification. So if they can't make $30,000, then you can't charge 10. If they can't make $20,000, then you can't even charge 8. You need to build the multiple so that you're guaranteed that they will hit their minimum 3x and hopefully exceed that. Why? So next year, when you tell them they need to recertify, they are there and willing and able and thrilled to give you more money. So that's part of what I call the multiple streams of recurring revenue that come built into a great certification program.
That's a brilliant idea, because I know a lot of people, once they're certified, I know nurses and doctors and everything have to keep going back to do certain things, but I think unless you're in that field, most of us think, I got my college degree, I got my certificate from the woodworking class or whatever, and I'm good for the rest of my life. And this idea of and so for the recertification, they're bringing in new information, or they're requalifying them, or is that a similar program in length and structure, or is that different?
Well, for some clients, it's literally bringing in new levels of certification. For other clients, it's literally a business model. In other words, look, we taught you how to do something, and we built a system that feeds you every day, every week with new leads and new customers and new content and new presentations and systems, your own website, your own CRM that we populate for you. And if you'd like to continue with us, then you just pay certification fees again.
And then is it just a fee, or do they get a program that goes with it?
Oh, most people they want to give them a program that goes with it. Why? Because it will increase the viability of what they're doing. So by all means. The other thing is that we have this built into certification. We create this thing called Ascension. So what is Ascension? Well, if you took a job and you came in at the entry level, you'd probably enjoy the job for a little while, but you'd want to raise, you'd want to advance.
Right.
Well, in certification programs that don't have Ascension, people get bored and leave.
Okay.
So what we do is we build levels directly, upfront, deliberately inside our certification master plan before we even launch it, so that as people propagate up and through, they're always advancing. They're always learning. They're always growing. And they're given new business opportunities at the same time.
And okay, that's actually brilliant. I love that. Now, but I have a question. So you said you want people who already have 500 or 1,000. What about those people who might be listening who aren't quite at that level yet? How would you recommend they get to that level quickly so that then they can move forward like this?
Sure. There's several ways. First of all, I have a book. It's called Power Tribes. I highly recommend, I think it's a $15 or $16 investment. I highly recommend you make the investment and read the book. It'll give you an overview of what we've been talking about today. It'll get very specific about certain elements of this, and start mapping it out in your own mind, what your future tribe might look like. The other thing that would be good to do in advance is start mapping out your culture. Start trying to figure out what really are your values, and the book will help you do that to some degree. I also have a free gift, which is 8 steps to build your own power tribe, which again, it's a simple infographic, but it has a lot of good content and makes you think. So that would be another place to start, and that's free. And David will link to that in the show notes as well. So
I want to say, in case you're driving along, it is powertribesbook.com/8 steps. but it will be in the show notes as well. So,
yeah. And so once you start doing things like that, you think about it, and here's the most important thing. If you believe that you have a transformation that is so unique that only you can do it, I would like you to challenge yourself a little bit. I've helped people who had spiritual programs, who've had very intense coaching programs based on personal life experience, all create others who can create the same transformation that they are able to create. And what I would suggest doing is mapping that out. Starting now, start mapping that out. And then as far as growing your company, I mean, do what you need to do. You know, one of the things that I tell all of the people that I come into contact with who have businesses is go get yourself a coach. I mean, why wouldn't you trade some of that phony paper money that they keep circulating around for a year of your life? Because that's what good coaching does, is it advances you a year in a month or 2 or 3. So go get yourself a good coach and listen and follow those directions and build and grow your company. And that's how you get to 500 clients no matter what you're doing.
Good. So I'm going to say promised, but you threatened, I don't know what the term was, talking about some experiences that might be a little, shall we say, off the beaten path. What were you thinking of? I'd love to.
Well, I was going to talk a little bit about my origin and some of the things that led me to have the spiritual life that I do. And some of it isn't pretty. And I'll try and make the story move as fast as it can.
But I want to bring out why I'm asking this and why I'd like to cover that is because we all come from different. The part of your ability to do what you can do now and help as many people as you can help and have the podcasts and write the books and all of that is because of this origin story. And I think it's very important that people recognize that one of the things that I personally believe is that the world is for you and that whatever experiences you have, which you may decide are positive or negative, may ultimately be incredibly helping you move forward. So the reason I want to spend time going through this is because for people who should build a tribe, you probably had some interesting things happen to you. And I want to give validity to that. And I think your example is something that will help people. So I'm going to sit back and enjoy this. And you don't need to rush on my account. So
okay, good. No problem at all. I'll tell the story. But I want to start out by saying that what I'm about to share with you is something that a lot of people go through, but not a lot of people get to the end. And the reason that it's important is because I was able to do this, I was then able to do what I do now. And that's what, David, that's what you were saying before. I at 16 years old, became addicted to hard narcotics. So I became addicted to heroin in high school. And I was mainlining heroin every morning in the high school boys' bathroom. And it was a path. It wasn't like a decision I made, I think I'll mainline heroin today. It was a gradual path that took me down this road. And there was a pivotal moment in the way this evolved for me. I got more and more hooked on drugs, and it came down to a particular day and time. It would happen to be a Thursday. And on Thursday, I went into the bathroom to make a purchase, to cop some dope, as we used to say. And I found my dealer was out, but he had somebody else there in his place. And so I bought a $5 bag, glassine bag, filled with dope. And I stuck it in my wallet. And remember, I said it was Thursday. Well, this bag of dope was burning a hole in my mind for the rest of the week because I wasn't going to use it till Saturday morning after band practice. So my goal was to get through Friday and part of Saturday before I shot up again. And so all throughout the time, all I kept thinking about was that bag of dope in my wallet, which is one of the key telltale signs that you're an addict. And so finally, the band practice was over, and everybody had left. And I pulled out my little box of goodies, which basically consisted of a needle, a spoon, some cotton, so I could draw it up, and a pack of matches. And so I started to cook up my little mixture. I added some water to the spoon. I bent the spoon over so it would stand up on its own. I then lit the match. I poured the water in, and I tapped the glassine bag into the spoon, and I waited for it to bubble, and then I filled it with the syringe. I sucked it into the syringe and filled it, and I then tied my arm off, and I tap the tip of the syringe to make sure that I was getting the air out. And just then the phone rang. And so I picked up the phone, and I said, hello, 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 and I heard clicking. It wasn't like a dead line. It was like there was something trying to come through. So I kept saying, hello, 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 but there was nobody at the other end of the line. And then what ended up happening at that point was I hung up the phone and then went to resume what I was doing. And I was about to put the needle in my arm when I tapped it one more time. And I realized that the concoction that I had cooked up and put into the needle was false, was phony, was basically Drano. And it had coagulated into a solid block. And what's interesting about this story, and what struck me at that moment in time, was that had that phone not rang, I would have put that needle in my arm while the fluid was still hot. I would have injected it directly into my veins, and it would have moved into my heart and gelled solid, and I would have been dead in about 35 seconds. So the question I have for you, David, and for the audience is, who called me on the phone that day?
Why the whole thing that when you describe the phone is that they're tapping. And that's what you were doing to get the air out and everything. So it's a very interesting experience. And I think that a lot of people who have that experience, you start thinking, oh, wait a minute, that's a transformational moment.
Yes.
And when people have these and they allow themselves to recognize them, and I don't know if you're familiar, there's a show on TV called The Good Place. And at one point, there's a more celestial being who is talking to some people. I don't want to go into a lot of detail. And he's trying to get them a message tactfully. And they all say, oh, we got the 4 points, the hints that you gave us. We got them all. He said, well, actually, I gave you 34,000 and you got 4. So I think we're all getting them all the time, but this was such a pivotal one. So what happened?
Well, I realized at that time, the only person that could have been calling me was God, and or whatever you call God for you. And what for me happened is I started to sob. And I cried for, 5, 6, 7, 10 minutes maybe. I just cried. Because I realized at that point I was standing between the junction of two pathways. I realized at that point, if I take the left side, I'm going to die of a junkie, and probably in the next 6 months. And this was proof, because had I put that needle in my arm, I would have been dead. Right. Or I could take the right path and become clean and sober, and maybe actually make something of value to this world of myself. And I chose the right path, and I never shot heroin again. And it was hard because I had to go through withdrawal on my own. But the interesting thing was later, months later, my family found out about my activities, and I'll use the kind word, enrolled me in a rehab program in New York City, which was actually the most powerful, wonderful experience of my life. Going through drug rehab not only saved my life, but was the most transformative experience I could have ever had, because I came out clean, sober, and sane. I came out having unburdened myself of all the emotional baggage that you accumulate growing up to be 17 or 18 years old, of which there's much,
Right.
at least it was for me. So I came out able, willing, and focused to be an adult, to create a life for myself of value. And I have been doing that ever since.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm sure the first few times you shared it was quite emotionally raw. But again, what we talked about before is we realized that this is not me. I have to tell this story. People need to, my role is to say this, whether I like it or not, whether I'm embarrassed or not, I don't know about you, but I have been on stage and tears are rolling because of what I'm saying. And I know other people who are, very powerful and influential speakers, and you say what you need to say. You tell the stories that you need to tell to motivate, to uplift, to share, to bring about a more harmonious vision of the world. So you went from doing that in the men's room to building a software company in your garage. Is that, or was it many years did a lot go in between there? What happened?
It's a little indirect, but the bottom line is that when I finally graduated the drug rehab program, I did decide that I wanted to be involved in the electronics industry because that was my passion. And so I went on to figure out where I fit in this big industry called the electronics industry. And it took me a while to figure it out, but I became an engineer. And I loved what I was doing when I was actually engineering, but I hated what I was doing when I wasn't designing circuits. So being an electrical engineer is 95% busy work and 5% creative work. And so I realized it wasn't enough, and it wasn't the right profession for me. So I decided I would instead do something that I saw other people doing that I thought I could be good at, and that was selling. So I ended up going into sales and selling semiconductors, which, interestingly enough, I did very well at. But when the cyclic downturn came, as it always does in the semiconductor industry, instead of waiting it out, I said, this is my moment. Now I'm going to start a company. And the way I think about it is that I announced it to the universe. I said, okay, I have this money that I've saved up. I could either take a year off and go to the beach, I could travel, or I could start a company. And I decided to start a company, but I didn't know what kind of company to start. So I said, in my own way, I said, God, bring me as much opportunity as you possibly can so that I can choose. And all of a sudden, in a matter of 2 months, I had 5 different opportunities all show up at the same time. And it was in that mix of trying out each one that this one long shot of an opportunity turned out to be a software company. And even that had a pathway that was unexpected because the company was created around solving a problem, as all good companies are. Except what do you do when you take all of your resources and dedicate it to solving the problem, and you quit your job and you get on board and you do everything you can to launch this amazing new company and this amazing new product, only to find out the day before you're launching that the problem no longer exists. So in our case, we had solved the problem that the IRS created, and the IRS then relaxed its rulings, so we no longer had a product that was of value. And we had to pivot. Well, thank God, because if we would have stayed in that business, even with the problem, it would never have been a very big company at all. But because we pivoted into a bigger, more lucrative space, we had the opportunity to redeploy a good part of what we had built to a much bigger market, which later turned out to be a huge market. So we got lucky. We were persistent. The way that life orchestrates circumstances requires that you be aware enough to see the pathway in front of you. There's some people who, and I wanted to just break down and cry, complain, and go back to my plan A, which was to go to the beach for a year. But instead, I said, no, wait a minute. What do we do with this thing? This is incredible technology. How can we repurpose it? Who else needs it? What else could we do with it? And these are the pivot points that gave us the opportunity to then create that $10 million company from nothing.
So I want to get back to this whole idea of tribes. I think you've covered by example so many very useful points. And just the idea of, finding happiness if the job which I'm trained for isn't working for me, and allowing the flexibility to not think, oh, I'm trapped in it, but rather I think there's something better. I think this idea of going into sales, something that you could do and you were good at, but it may not fulfill your heart, but it gave you a pathway to have the cash to decide to open a company. The way that you said, bring me opportunities so I could choose, I think that was also brilliant. The idea of then, investing and getting the company going, and then when this opportunity at the end instead of just saying, F it, now I'm going to go to the beach, what I tried didn't work, I'm now going to have to start from scratch. I personally believe that everything builds, and if we do it right, while we may have thought we were building a ladder to X, it may be that, oh my God, we push it over here a little bit and it's, a treadmill. It's a whatever it is. It's something that's a little bit different. I thought I was going for one thing, but it turns out that it's something else and it's even better. That's fabulous. And to have that wherewithal in terms of, emotional stability and the clear thinking to go, well, we've got this, we put a lot of effort into it, what can we do with it now? And then use the term pivot, but I just reacting to what's available in the world. And I think there's a lot of that going on right now, people readjusting even their core beliefs about things because of how the world is functioning right now with the COVID thing going on and everything. Mm-hmm. So somehow from there you ended up working with Tony Robbins. I don't know if that's part of, I want to get back to this whole idea of tribes, because I think that's what we really want to bring home to people. I think it's such an effective way of building community. And I think when I was a teenager, I worked in a record store and my whole life was music. I am tone deaf. I can't play a note. I have no musical talent, but I grew up with music. My dad was in radio. He had like 1,200 records when he married my mother. And this is back in the late 40s, 1950. That's a ridiculous record collection. And I had a similar one in high school. And I loved everything about music. And all of my friends were musicians, or a good deal of them. And they were in bands, and they would say, and I would come up with them and I'd say, you need to hear this. And it would be some obscure thing that nobody, I'd say, you need to play this song. And I kept doing it for a while. And then they discovered that all these other bands were doing exactly what I was saying. And he came to me, he said, well, okay, I'm now willing to listen to you. What music should we do now? And I said, well, at this point, it's all breaking up. It used to be just, Beatles, rock and roll, whoever it was. And now that has developed enough so that there's country rock, there's, all the different genres or whatever you want to call it. And I said, you have to be aware of that. And I think at this point in the world, people are recognizing that I can I can be part of, I don't want to say create, I can be part of a fulfilling community that adds to the richness of the garden. Mm-hmm. That doesn't have to involve everybody. I can have a community of, 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, 100,000, whatever it is. I don't have to conquer the world. I can find a really good space here. And I think that building the communities and the tribes that you're talking about, I think is an incredible way to harmonize all the differences within the world in a beautiful way. We want differences in the world. We don't want a garden that's just one flower. We want all the different flowers. So from my perspective, this, as I said earlier, this is brilliant. And I think it's spot on time-wise in the world, this need for people to recognize that I can have a community and be part of something that doesn't necessarily mean the kids in my neighborhood.
Right.
So So what other things do you feel would be useful for people to know about building tribes, and in terms of building their business as part of it? What key points maybe do you want to share with people? Do you want to tell them about that 90-minute thing that we talked about?
Well, let's go in a little different direction here. I think this would be of value. Remember when we started the broadcast, I said the world has changed.
Right.
Well, maybe for the people listening who have businesses, the world changed, but not as much as it was for people who don't have businesses. So one of the things about this new changed world is that over the last 10 years or 20 years, security overall has become almost non-existent, particularly job security. And in some cases, many other types of security too. But the thing is that whatever it is that you're doing, you have the chance now to create this new profession for people outside of your world to join and become part of your mission as part of what they do to personally evolve. And this is what I meant by the world is changing. This never existed really before in any form of an organized way. This is giving people a chance to say, for you as a company owner to say, join me. I'll feed you. I'll keep you safe. I'll give you the tools you need. Yes, you have to pay for them. But if you follow the pathway, you'll enrich the world. You'll enrich yourself and your family. You'll make a good living. And there's a higher purpose as well. You'll feed into this much bigger purpose of doing good in the world. And that's why I said earlier, it's like you have a moral obligation to go forth and spread what you know and what you do to benefit humanity. And it's very, very true. So that's really what I would love to leave people with, to understand that this isn't only, as I think we've made clear 100 times, it's not really only about money. Yes, it's great to generate revenue, and it's hard work to put it together, but it's really about how the world has changed and where the world is going. The more the world changes, the more we need communities to contain us, to hold us, to nurture us. And without those communities, we're alone in the world, and that's no fun at all, and not very healthy.
I think I love the way you consolidated all of that, and I do want to address that there might be some people who are listening who get the whole idea, but they realize that they're not the entrepreneur. And for those people, I want to say, find the community to join.
Yes.
Get certified. You may not be the one who puts a program together. You may be, but if you're not that person, but you feel that there's something that you'd like to do, that you love this idea of moving the world forward, but you're not in that one role, find the community, find the certification program, find what it is that will arm you to move forward. Look for them. They're around,
Yes.
Look through, check, certainly the social media. You can just start asking. I'm looking, pick some keywords of the things that you most believe in and do searches on Google. I really think that we don't need money anymore. Maybe as an example, I think that we should live in a world that doesn't have money. There's a tribe for that. And there's actually a city in the world that I've seen the article about that they don't have money in this small town, whatever it is. They just got rid of it a long time ago. I don't know what's happening there. I'm not necessarily saying this is a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm saying, one of the things that came up this morning as I was walking around is that 90% of the world's problems are somehow related to money. And if we didn't have money, those would all go away. Now, that doesn't mean we have to starve, and I don't want to get into that whole thing. The reason that I'm mentioning this as an example of whatever it is that you feel maybe you're out of sync with in the world, that your belief is a little bit askew from somebody else, but you feel that it's a movement in the right direction, find your tribe. Join a tribe. Move in the direction that helps you. Mitch, I am so grateful for you to be here. I'm still thinking, how do I use this for what I want to do? And while I can see very clearly how I could create, a tribe, a power tribe based on what you've said. And I think, well, yes, I'd love to work with you, and we'll talk about that. But there's some confusion about, do I want to sell the product or build a tribe? All that's the big thing is, I appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate the transformation that you went through, and that your willingness to share it, to help people, to say it doesn't matter what your origins were, what your beginning was. It's what we do with our circumstances. Right. And if we move towards the light, towards God, towards love, towards whatever it is that we feel that is, in a positive direction, I think that's immensely helpful. So I love your example. I keep getting that I have a question, but I don't know what it is. So I think I want to mention, again, the Peace and Harmony program that you're playing is a sample that our audience can get at peaceandharmonydownload.com. And I encourage people to do more than that. That's a little field that'll do your room, but we have programs that will do entire cities. And if you want to step up to the plate, they're not that expensive. Our lowest price one is on sale now, which will do 10,000 people or 10 square miles, depending if you're in a dense population or out in the country. And that is on sale now for $4,777. And the one that does 3 times that is on sale for just under $10,000. So we have these systems. They're small, they're portable, they work great. And I want to encourage people to, what they do is exactly what you said. Your thinking is clearer, you're calmer, your tolerance level, and then imagine projecting that where people have been looting. And all of a sudden, they're all feeling that way. You can see how that can make a big impact on society. Yeah. So I want to mention again, so do you want to just send them to the powertribesbook.com/8 steps? 8 steps is all one word, no space. Yeah. Want to send them to anything else, or you're good with that for today?
I think that's easy to consume. And if listeners, if you have any other questions, or you're interested in other things I do, you're already going to be on my website anyway. So go poke around and see if there's anything that interests you. There's 390 blog posts, interviews, and other pieces of content that I've created. So it should keep you busy for the afternoon at least. You know, go enjoy.
And I wanted to mention, by the way, because I saw your website a while back, right after we first met, and then I saw it last week, and I wanted to congratulate you. I really like what you've done with it. It's so much cleaner and nicer, and you're so much more approachable. I love the picture that you have now on your homepage.
Thank you.
So I wanted to point out, that looks great. So you should go see his website. It's a really well done website. It'll give you ideas. He is a very knowledgeable, brilliant, and kind man. I think the world of you. I want to encourage people to take advantage of whatever they feel to. But it's very hard to go to his website, which is mitchrusso.com, and it'll be in the show notes, and not gain something, not insight, not encouragement. Any one page that you read are loaded with so much. Mitch, thank you very much for being here. I'm so appreciative of you.
My pleasure, David. Thank you for having me.
Okay. We'll see you next time on Here We Come to Save the Day.
Thank you for listening to another helpful, fun, and life-changing episode of Here We Come to Save the Day with David Adelson. To access the show notes and additional resources, go to herewecometosavetheday.com. If you've enjoyed the show and find it helpful and fun, please leave us a review and share with a friend. Tell us issues troubling you or questions you have. We're here to help you. That's what Here We Come to Save the Day is all about. Till next time.